Remember a few weeks ago when we pressed the reset button on the season and it went all right, I think we might have to do that again. We're heading back to the well this week. What's happening, everybody? Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter, fueled as always by the incredible folks at NerdTees, and welcome to lucky week number 13 in the 2022 CFL season, aka OK Tire Labor Day weekend. So yeah, we're back down in the basement. The collared shirt is back on because, look, let's look at it this way. We're on a hike together, you and I. And we've been at the peak for quite some time this year. Right now, we're kind of going through a bit of a valley. We'll put it that way. It was not a good week last week. Only 4-8. And 3 of those 4 were the totals. So it was basically the bizarro world week to what we've been used to seeing around these parts this season. So the totals were great. Everything else was absolute dog shite, unfortunately. Only 1-3 straight up in the 4 games last week and got reverse swept against the spread. 0-4, head and shoulders my worst against the spread week all season long, but I did go 3-1 on the totals. So, I mean, even a blind squirrel finds a nut every now and then. 33-14 straight up on the season, 31-16 against the spread. So look, against the spread, we're still doing fairly well, but nobody wants to go 0-4 against the spread in any given week, obviously. And now only 1 game below 500 on the totals at 23-24. 87-54 on the season. It's still above 61%, so I'm still feeling okay, but we got to turn this ship around before this becomes, routine. CFL Fantasy was looking dour for a good portion of the week last week. I was sitting for a little while. I think I was sitting on 20 points with 1 or 2 players left to play. It was not looking good for me at all. I did manage to scrape together, I'm not going to call it a respectable total, but I managed to scrape together 68.8. I believe I've had worse weeks than that this year. My MVP, once again, Edmonton Elks quarterback Taylor Cornelius, had 287 passing yards, did not throw a pass touchdown, did throw an interception, but added 39 yards on 8 carries on the ground and 2 rushing touchdowns, plus a 2-point conversion. So there was plenty in there to lead to a pretty respectable fantasy performance, 27.4 points. I'm sitting on 997.3 for the season, so obviously at the end of next week, we'll be well up over 1,000 points. That was actually good enough to move up 1 spot in the official Atlantic Schooners CFL Fantasy Football League. So I moved up to 11th place now out of 49. The leader has 1,097.6. So I did lose ground by about 9 points to the team in first place. I did, however, gain on the team in 10th place. I now trail them by only 2.1 points. So I'm right there with the team right in front of me to be inside the top 10. So I did gain on them by about 4.5 and kept my lead on the team in 20th. So all was not a complete wash in CFL Fantasy, but boy, I was looking at my roster before the last game of the week really and thinking I was biting the nails down to the cuticles, man. I was like, is this going to be the season that my fantasy year, just the bottom completely falls out of it? Luckily it wasn't. We move on. Now, speaking of fantasy, I'm not going to be giving you my Week 13 lineup until the end of the video. I'm still working on it as I'm doing my recording. Right now, it's Tuesday evening. I just got off work, hence keeping the collared shirt on. So I will give you my fantasy roster at the very end of this video. The Week 13 lineup, aka, once again, the OK Tire Labor Day weekend lineup, looks like this. The BC Lions are on the bye this week. Ottawa is in Montreal taking on the Alouettes. Winnipeg is in Saskatchewan to take on the Riders. Toronto is in Hamilton to take on the Ticats. And Edmonton is in Calgary to take on the Stampeders. Obviously, these are classic, traditional Labor Day weekend matchups. The action doesn't get underway, I don't think, until Friday. And obviously, we got games on Monday this weekend. So, without further ado, let's get into these games. Let's kick things off this week in Montreal, that REDBLACKS Alouettes matchup. Ottawa extending their record to 2-8 on the season now with a win last week, 25-18. That game was in Edmonton. against the Elks. Ottawa's going to come into this one on the tail end of back-to-back road games, having won in the previous week. Ottawa led that game 20-3 at the half. They held on to avenge their loss in week 11 to the same Elks. And look, I got to credit this win to exactly one person, the king, Caleb Evans. And I know one person who can't comment on my channel anymore, but is probably still watching, who's very, very big mad. Whether he's the starting quarterback or not, his 2 rushing touchdowns in this game were the difference between a win and a loss in a game where Nick Arbuckle moved the ball very well, completed 65% of his passes, had 219 yards passing, but did not find the end zone. Now, he didn't give the ball away, but he didn't put any points on the board in that sense. No touchdowns for Nick Arbuckle. It was Caleb Evans that did all the damage in this one, and that included a 33-yard bomb to, I believe it was Nate Behar. That was part of his 4 catches for 101 yards receiving. Notably, the first game in Nate Behar's CFL career where he's gone over 100 yards receiving. A 33-yard bomb on what was very clearly a fake QBR, like designed run. I think it was like 2nd and 1. They bring Caleb Evans in. Everybody's like, okay, stack the line. We know this is going to be a run. He just pulls it back and laces it 33 yards down the field. So look, Caleb Evans is the best quarterback on this roster. The best healthy quarterback on the roster. All due respect to Jeremiah Masoli. The Montreal Alouettes firmly in the turning their season around conversation, now 4-6 on the year, winners of 2 straight games, and coming into this game off of their bye, so they're going to be well rested at home taking on the REDBLACKS, coming off of a 29-28 win against Hamilton 2 weeks ago. That game was also in Montreal. They walk off on this one, a true slugfest where we saw 3 lead changes inside the 4th quarter. Trevor Harris was solid in that game, completed 77% of his passes, 382 yards passing, which is a pretty darn good mark there. 3 touchdowns, he did throw a pick, and that kind of covered up for the fact that there really was no run game to speak of for the Alouettes in this one. They carried the ball 12 times for 43 yards. They weren't dedicated to running the ball, and when they did run, they didn't have the greatest success you've ever seen. 3 different touchdown receivers for Trevor Harris in that game 2 weeks ago. 1 goes to Geno Lewis, 1 goes to Reggie White, and 1 goes to Kion Julian Grant. Stop me if you've heard this one before. The Alouettes took a ton of penalties, 13 for 176 yards in penalties to be exact, and that included 102 yards in special teams penalties, 8 penalties for 102. It's just who they are now. I feel weird even talking about it because it's not like it's going to be fixed. They thought it was Kahari Jones. It's clearly not Kahari Jones. It's just who they are. It's who the players are. It's who the rest of the coaching staff is. It's clearly just who and what this team is. Now, when you have a game where you average 15.6 yards on first down, you can probably get away with it. And boy, it is never say die in the East Division, isn't it? You got the Argos up top at only 5-5. You got Montreal now at 4 wins. And look, the REDBLACKS are not even out of the playoff conversation here. They're the worst team in the East right now, standings-wise, but they're far from out of it. They're only 3 games back of the Argos, who are leading the division, and they're in the conversation for a home playoff game, bafflingly enough. Whoever gets that 2nd seed in the East is going to get a home playoff game. Now, the Alouettes have won back-to-back on Labor Day in this matchup. Now, both of those games were in Ottawa. I'm still going to go ahead and take the team with momentum here, the most momentum, I should say, and that's the Montreal Alouettes. Clearly, back-to-back wins. They're coming off the bye. They're going to be well-rested. Ottawa has to do the travel thing, the 2 games in 5 days, the late game last week and then the early game this week. Even though they do get that extra day in there because it's Labor Day weekend, I'm still going to take the Alouettes here at home. Let's take Montreal to beat Ottawa. However, against the spread, I am going to be taking the points with the Ottawa REDBLACKS here. Ottawa is a 5.5-point dog in Montreal. That's just too many points for me in a game featuring 2 teams in the East Division. I don't think these 4 teams in this entire division are really all that far apart. So to lay 5.5 points on one of them against the other, I just don't think I can personally do that. And to be perfectly honest, I'm going to watch the QB situation here. If Caleb Evans gets named the starter for this week, this may even be one where I come back and change this pick. Taking Ottawa to win the game outright if Caleb Evans is the starting quarterback It's entirely possible, but I will certainly be taking the 5.5 with the Red Blacks. Total in the game set at 49.5 points. I got to stay under on this one. The two teams in their last 8 have combined to hit only 2 overs, so not a ton of points coming out of these teams by and large. So we're going to go ahead and stay under 49.5 points in Montreal, Ottawa. Let's go Alouettes 21, Red Blacks 17. So Montreal wins, taking Ottawa with the points under 49.5. But again, keep your eyes peeled. I could change this pick. Let's go to Saskatchewan now for the battle before the Banjo. Winnipeg in Saskatchewan. Blue Bombers taking on the Roughriders. Winnipeg moving their record to 10-1 last week, getting back on the happy side of things after their first loss of the season. They picked up a 31-29 win at home against Calgary. They sweep the season series, their 3rd win over the Stampeders in the same season. Exceptionally difficult to do. But all 3 of those games were by 7 points or fewer. So all those games were exceptionally competitive coming down to the last possessions of the game. Winnipeg got the job done all 3 times, and that's kind of just what they do. You know, I've done a lot of talking about Zach Collaros this season, but it was Dakota Prukop in this game that made the most of his opportunities. Prukop with 1 pass attempt. It was a 10-yard touchdown pass to, I believe it was Rashid Bailey. And he had 5 carries, turned it into 25 yards and a rush touchdown, like a 2-yard touchdown run right down there on the goal line. So didn't have a lot of opportunity in this game, but shout out to Dakota Prukop because he made those opportunities count. And that, again, is the leitmotif of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. This team has so many ways to win football games. I want you to look at the context of this game. An important West Division game against a very good opponent in the Calgary Stampeders. You didn't have Greg Ellingson. Dalton Schoen was invisible in the first half of this game. But look, Nick Dembski, 8 catches for 117 yards and a touchdown. He picks up the slack. Greg McCrae, 5 catches for 95 yards and a highlight reel touchdown to get the Bombers on the board. The Bombers just have so many ways to beat you and so few ways that they're going to beat themselves. Great teams force you to beat them. They don't make the mistakes that beat themselves. Over on Saskatchewan's side, the Roughriders moved their record to 6-5 on the season with a 23-16 win in BC against the Lions. The first game in the post-Nathan Rourke era was won by Saskatchewan. And Cody Fajardo stepped up, man. He's been taking a ton of criticism over the last month. He stepped up. 79% on his passes, 321 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Clean and efficient. A very good game for Fajardo. Added 38 yards on 6 carries, which means the old Pins probably got to be feeling a little bit better as well. Ladies and gentlemen, hashtag Frankie Hickson season is real and it's spectacular. Frankie Hickson stepping right into that Jamal Morrow type role. 19 touches of the football for 183 all-purpose yards. That includes runs, that includes catches. It even includes special teams on a kick return. So look, he stepped in there and he filled that specific exact role that Jamal Morrow was filling early on in the season. I think the Riders got themselves a guy. I don't think they got to feel too bad about Morrow being out for as long as he's going to be. And look, man, they don't ask how, they ask how many. This was a game that very easily could have slipped away from the Riders. BC was building momentum here late in this game, and they took a late penalty that allowed the Riders to run out the clock. A very critical, crucial penalty at the end of the game. But look, Sasky still got the job done up to that point. I'm not taking anything away from the Riders. They went into BC, tough place to win, and they got the W. This is a tough spot for Riders fans because, look, the Bombers have just been so dominant against the West this year. They have not lost. They still haven't lost a game on the road. They're 6-0 away from home this year. They snapped a 3-game Riders win streak in this game last season. And this year, the Riders aren't really winning big games. Like, they're, 6-5 is what we said the record was? 2 of those wins are against Edmonton. I think 2 of them are against the West, or 2 of them are against the East at least, if not 3. They beat the BC Lions without Nathan Rourke. I mean, they're not really winning the big games. When the big games come up, Sasky's falling short, and that's not me. I'm not criticizing them for that. It's just the matter of the season so far. So I think I got to go with Winnipeg in this one. If there was a way that I could see grabbing the Riders in an upset here, it would be a fun play for sure. But I think we're going to have to go ahead and stick with the Bombers. Let's take Winnipeg in Saskatchewan to beat the Riders. Now on the line, the Riders are taking 3.5 points here as a home dog. I feel really good about laying these 3.5 points here on Winnipeg. The Bombers are 5-1 against the spread away from home this year. So not only are they winning, but they're covering these numbers. So we're going to go ahead and lay the 3.5. Total in the game set at 44.5, and I'm going to stick under on it, even though it is by far the lowest total of the week. The last two Labor Day games between these two teams have yet to clear 36. I think it was 36 points and 31 in the last two Labor Day games in Saskatchewan, right in this spot. I understand that it has been hashtag over season up to this point, but the unders are starting to come home to roost here a little bit. I don't think this is a high-scoring game. I'm going to stay under 44.5 points in Winnipeg, Saskatchewan. Let's take Bombers 20, Riders 10. And before we move on to the back half of the games this week, I want to take the opportunity, as I always do, to shout out my great friends and sponsors at Nerd Tees. And folks, your grand nightmare is finally over. The Nerd Tees physical location in Woodstock, Ontario is open for business. The online orders are back open again, which means you can go to nerdtees.ca and use my promo code, which is BWFinest. That is going to save you 15% at checkout. You're also going to get free shipping in Canada on any order over $100, which is an excellent value. And today's blend is a classic. Golden apple cinnamon. Smells like a bakery every time you make a cup of tea, and who doesn't love that? Literally dozens and dozens of unique and incredible loose leaf tea blends can be found on nerdtees.ca. The promo code is BWFinest. That is going to save you your 15%. It's going to get you your free shipping in Canada. You got an excellent conversion rate on the US dollar as well. Find yourself something to love, ladies and gentlemen, or find someone you love something to love. You can do it on nerdtees.ca. All right, back half of the week, let's go. We've got the Toronto Argos in Hamilton taking on the Ticats, a rematch from last week where Toronto came up with the 37-20 win to extend their record to 5-5, drop Hamilton's record to 3-8. This might have been one of the worst 17-point victories that I have ever watched for a team, because you look at that score and you think, oh, 37-20, they kind of blew him out a little bit. They really didn't. McLeod Bethel-Thompson was opportunistic in this football game. He was hardly great. He completed less than 60% of his passes. He only threw for 258, which is like average, but it's not lighting the world on fire. But he did throw 3 touchdown passes, and he was gifted, in fact, many really fortunate opportunities in terms of field position in this game, but he did throw a pick as well, so he didn't exactly light the scoreboard on fire. The team had no real run game. They carried the ball 10 times for 43 yards, which sucks for me because I had AJ Willett in my fantasy team. And their leading receiver was Brandon Banks. He only had 67 yards on 3 catches. They didn't exactly light the thing on fire, but the team on the other side were very much on fire. Yeah, stop me if you've heard this one before. The Ticats blew a lead in the second half. Mind-boggling, I know. They led this game 16-10 at the half, and then were promptly outscored 27-4. Get ready for this. On the season as a whole, the Hamilton Tiger Cats, in the second half of games, including overtime, just in the second half of football games, have been outscored by almost 100 points. It's 196-99. They have won the second half twice in 11 games. You remember, like, God, I don't know, was it week 3 or week 4? I was like, Orlando Steinauer has to answer for this. Like, I was saying it. I said it. I think I said it right out in the video. Like, he needs to be fired over this. Now, I backed off of that because that felt kind of premature to say that. Yeah, we're 11 games into the season now. You can go ahead and fire him because, like, this is coaching. You can't have 9 of 11 games where you get outscored, and often badly, in the second half of football games. It means you're not making adjustments. It means it's coaching. It's not the players. Look, you have roster problems on that team. That's coaching. I'm sorry. And that can't just be the players, because it doesn't matter who the running backs are. It doesn't matter who the receivers are. It doesn't matter who the quarterbacks are. It's 9 out of 11 games. That's coaching. Like I said, for Toronto, it definitely helped their opportunism that they were gifted turnovers at a remarkable rate. I think there were 3 interceptions in total. I think all 3 of them were from Dane Evans. He lost fumbles. They're just incredible. Now, I will say, it's not like Toronto didn't work for them, because they did work for them. They didn't earn them. They got good pressure at the line of scrimmage. They generated 4 quarterback sacks in this game. They hit the quarterbacks more often than that. So they weren't just handed them. They did definitely work, but they got a lot of them. For the Ticats, this was all the same problems that they've been having, just persistent all season. They can't run the ball. They lose by 17 points in a game where they possessed the ball. Get this. A game where they possessed the ball for 38 minutes. Toronto had 22 minutes time of possession and turned that into 37 points. Unacceptable. How many times am I going to say that about the Ticats this year? How many times do you want to listen to Dane Evans say, no, it's me. Like, it's me. I'm the problem. Like, yeah, you've said that like 3 times this year. Now is when you go fix it. You don't just, it's good that you've taken responsibility, but now's the time that you go fix it, and he hasn't fixed it. I say all that to say this. The Hamilton Ticats are going to win this week. Look, I think Matthew Schultz is going to get the start. I hope he does. All 3 of Hamilton's wins this year have come at home, and the Ticats are on a 7-game Labor Day win streak. So that's not nothing. Yes, a lot of those years, the Ticats have been an objectively better football team. But you don't win 7 straight games by accident. So there's something here. And yes, it feels like I've said now or never for this Hamilton team like 3 times this year. But like, we're getting down to now or never time. So if they're going to make a move, and there's still moves to be made in the East Division, Toronto's at 5-5. Any of those teams can catch them. Like, they've been asking teams to catch them all season long. If somebody's going to do it, the time's got to be now. I think Hamilton gets that started this week. I like the Ticats at home to pick up the win over the Argos. On the line, Hamilton's laying 1.5 as a home favorite. I like them to win. That's a very small price to pay. So we're going to go ahead and lay the 1.5. Total in the game is 49.5 points, and I am going to go over on this one. Look, they just put up 57 last week. They're over in 7 of the last 8 overall combined, so we're going to go over 49.5 points because these 2 teams are scoring right now. Let's go Hamilton 30, Toronto 24. Hamilton's going to get one back, keep this thing super interesting all the way down the stretch. By the way, Argos fans, I totally get it if like watching this show this season has been like painful for you. How many times have I picked the Argos this year? I think maybe twice, 3 times, something like that. And if I had more faith in them, genuinely, I'd pick with them more often. But I've said it before, like I don't know that this team is anything. It's like I don't know that it's anything special. And the last game of the week is going to take place in Calgary, where the Stampeders are going to play host to the Edmonton Elks. Both of these teams were losers last week. Edmonton dropping that 18-25 decision at home against Ottawa. Calgary dropping the 2-point decision in Winnipeg to the Bombers. Now for the Elks, they are 3-8 on the season, and it was a completely inefficient passing game from Taylor Cornelius, which we talked about a little bit before, but his pass efficiency was, I think, like under 60%, which is very not good. And that's not just his completion percentage, that's his pass efficiency, aka his QBR, his passer rating. Like, it was like below 60, so it's just not good enough, and that sinks them in probably their most winnable home game of the season. The Elks turned the ball over on downs 3 times in this game. And when you go back and look at them, you just got to ask, who the hell is calling these plays? So, 3rd and 5 from the opponent's 36. When you're on the other team's 36-yard line in the CFL, and you got like a pretty good field goal kicker, Sergio Castillo, would you kick the field goal maybe? What is that? Is that that's not even 45. Like, that's makeable for any kicker in the CFL. kick the field goal. But no, they went for it on, and it wasn't like it was like 3rd and an inch. It was 3rd and 5, and they go for it, and wouldn't you know who won the pony? They turn it over on downs. It winds up being points on the other side. The other situation, 3rd and 10 from your own 39. Now, this was inside of the last 2 minutes, but they would then go on to get the ball back. So instead of going for it on 3rd and 10, if you're confident that you're going to get like one more crack at it or have a chance to get one more crack at it, punt the ball. Like, what are you doing? But hey, if you're the Elks, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Kenny Lawler, just what an absolute monster. Oh, he only caught 3 balls in this game and went for $146. Like, the dude's absolutely insane. He's already set a career high this year in yards after the catch with 197. He's only played 11 games, mind you. It's his 6th game this season with at least 75 yards receiving. Just absolutely monstrous. If he stays healthy, he's going to break his career best. I think his career best, it's up over 1,000. I think it's up over 1,100 maybe. He's at 8 something now, and that's only in 11 games. So I think he's going to shatter that this year. He's probably inarguably the best receiver in the CFL. On the Stamps side, like I mentioned, they dropped that 2-point game against Winnipeg in Winnipeg. Ladies and gentlemen, Jake Maier is the real deal. 82% on his completions in that game, 294 for his throwing yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks, all 3 of those receiving touchdowns going to Malik Henry. So the Malik Henry show has officially arrived. He was great. Jake Maier was great in that football game. It just wasn't quite enough. I didn't love the way either defense played in that game, either Calgary or Winnipeg. They combined to give up 884 yards of total offense, so I didn't love the way either of them played. But Calgary's 2 interceptions off of Zach Collaros at the very least gave them a chance. So their defense, there's credit to them because there's a couple of splash plays there, and this was an exceptionally close game. Their defense kept them in that game and gave more opportunities to that very good offense. Yes, they lost the game. Yes, Jake Maier proved that he is the real deal. However, as important or more important than anything else, Kadeem Carey proved in this game that he's healthy and he's back. And that is probably the most important thing to the continuing success of the Stampeders the rest of this season and hopefully into the playoffs. Kadeem touched the ball 13 times, had 76 all-purpose yards. It was his first game since week 8. So getting the opportunity to prove that, hey, he is back, and he was running hard in this game. He looked real good. Matter of fact, so did Peyton Logan. I think Calgary, and this could be a game where you could really test this out, I think Calgary's got a real opportunity here to kind of play with the concept of really utilizing both of these backs. They're both explosive playmakers. Kadeem Carey obviously is great, inarguably the best running back in the CFL. Peyton Logan's no slouch, man. Edmonton has not beaten a West Division opponent all season long. However, they did win this game last year. They played Calgary over Labor Day weekend. They won this game last year. The Stamps are only 2-4 against the West in their own right, but that's obviously a far cry better than Edmonton's 0-7. Yes, all of Edmonton's wins this year have come on the road, but the Stamps are just a far cry better team than Edmonton are. So we're definitely going to be on Calgary in this one. Let's take the Stamps at home to get the win over Edmonton. Calgary, however, is laying 12.5 points in this game. I should have said this from the top. All of my lines this week were coming from Sports Interaction. So that's what it is on Sports Interaction right now, 12.5. I think I got to take those points with Edmonton, man. That's just too many points for me to lay. Jake Maier was great in that one game. Let's see how he follows it up. I think Calgary's going to score their points, certainly, but 12.5 is just a little bit too much for me. So we're going to take the 12.5 points on the Edmonton Elks. Total in the game set at 49.5 points. I have to go under on this one. Even though Calgary cleared this last week in their game, Edmonton did not. I'm obviously concerned about Edmonton's offensive upside with Taylor Cornelius. He certainly makes some plays, and he's certainly been a valuable fantasy football asset, but I worry about their ability to get over this number. So we're going to stick under 49.5 points in Calgary-Edmonton. Let's go Stamps 27, Elks 17. Apologies for the freezer in the background, but there you have it, folks. Those are the picks for Lucky Week 13 in the CFL in 2022. Go over them here with you one more time. I've got the Montreal Alouettes beating the Ottawa REDBLACKS 21-17, which means I'm taking 5.5 points on Ottawa in a game that stays under 49.5. But again, keep an eye out. I might change this pick if Caleb Evans is named the starting quarterback. I got the Winnipeg Blue Bombers beating the Saskatchewan Roughriders 20-10, which means I'm laying 3.5 points on Winnipeg in a game that goes under 44.5. I got the Hamilton Ticats beating the Toronto Argos 30-24. I'm laying minus 1.5 on the Ticats in a game that goes over 49.5. And I got the Calgary Stampeders beating the Edmonton Elks 27-17. That is a plus 12.5 on the Edmonton Elks in a game that stays under 49.5 points. Thank you so much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully we're back down in what you may recall is both the No Holds Barred Dungeon as well as the exclusive home of the Justin and Tyler Movie Awards. Now that we're down here, we got the collared shirt on. Hopefully our luck comes back. That's it for me, Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter, fueled as always by the incredible folks at NerdTees. Thank you so much for watching and listening. We will see you again in Week 14. Best of luck and enjoy Labor Day weekend.